Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Oh man, I love seeing those numbers climb up as soon as you start a webinar. It's so exciting. Exciting. So we'll give a few minutes for everyone to trickle in. Let me know in the chat, where are you joining us from? I'm from Vancouver, Canada.
Chat is not enabled.
Oh, let's see.
Yeah, but I love how people
Okay, let's
use
see.
the Q&A to tell us that. Great move.
Can someone try the chat now? Okay, amazing. Okay,
Wow.
thank you. I'm glad we got that fixed early on. Sweet.
There we
We
go.
have folks joining us
Oh, a
from
lot of people from
Atlanta.
Berlin. Hi, from Berlin also.
Ooh, I saw one from Michigan. I'm in Michigan as well.
Nice. From India. Happy belated Diwali to those joining from India. We have Japan, Cleveland, Colorado, Toronto, San Diego. Yes, another Canadian. Nice. I was like, am I the only Canadian? Michigan, Portland, UK, Switzerland, San Diego. Love it.
Wow, also
Chicago.
China must have been very late now, or I don't know.
Oh, Adam's joining us from Chicago. Adam, I just went to Chicago for the first time for my bachelorette, and it was amazing. I would move there in a heartbeat. I loved Chicago. Ireland, Montreal, New York, Brazil. Hey, Steve. Oh my God, so nice to see you. Steve's joining from Vancouver. I used to work with Steve once upon a time, so this is amazing.
So that makes it 3 Canadian for
Yeah,
now.
3 Canadians out of like everyone joining us live. Oh my God, Austin, Tamil Nadu.
Let's see how many people join from just Berlin versus all of Canada.
Hey, Nebraska.
Nebraska,
Oh,
wow, okay. Hey.
love it. Okay, amazing. It looks like we have a good amount of people joining us live. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today for a very exciting announcement. My name is Neha Varshneya. I will be your host. I am Gatsby's Director of Product Marketing. And today I have with me two very special Gatsby experts. We have our very own Josh Johnson, who's our product manager, and we had Khaled Garbaya, who is our engineering manager. Before I spill the beans too much, I think I'm just going to turn it over to both of them to introduce themselves and jump right into the exciting stuff.
Sweet. Thanks, Neha. Yeah, like Neha said, I am Josh Johnson. I'm the product manager of the platform squad, and I work alongside Khaled. And Khaled, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, Khaled here, engineering manager for the platform squad. So basically the open source part and then the cloud part. And we're very, very excited today to talk about a lot of cool things and show you a lot of cool things. So hope you're ready.
Yeah, Aaron's saying Gatsby 5 hype in the chat, and that's hopefully we continue that. So without further ado, let's get started. So we're talking about the all new Gatsby 5. So it's Khaled will be showing a short demo. I'll be talking through some of the initial features and things like that. And it's November 1st, so let's get started. So before we get started jumping into the whole Gatsby 5 and all the exciting stuff that's happening there, let's look back at Gatsby 4 a bit. So a high level of Gatsby 4, if you were around about a year ago, we introduced rendering modes. This is SSR for server-side rendering, fetching data and rendering things on the server, versus DSG, which is deferred static generation, a method that we use to help speed up some of your builds by, taking those less commonly visited pages and deferring their generation till later. Another thing that we introduced was Gatsby functions. It's been really cool to see some of the things that the community has created using Gatsby functions with like full size applications and things like that. And then also parallel query running. This was something that we introduced to parallelize your static queries and page queries to help speed things up a bit in the build process. So that was about a year ago, September, October. But what's happened since then? We've actually done a ton in the last year. And this is kind of a brief overview of what we've done. We have the Gatsby script component. We have the head API. A big one was incremental builds and deploys. We have image CDN, TypeScript and TypeGen, and then just general iteration. We've seen a lot of improvements around memory usage, build speed, things like that. If you want to take a deeper dive into what we've been up to, we actually published a blog post a couple weeks ago. And so there's a link there, gatsby.dev/2021 to 2022, that will give a brief overview of everything that we've been up to. But this kind of leads up to Gatsby 5. This is something that's upcoming. We're really excited to show off some of the things, but let's do a brief overview of what's in Gatsby 5. So Gatsby 5 was built upon all of the previous versions. Don't check my math there. I think it adds up. And so we've taken a lot of lessons learned from, Gatsby 2, Gatsby 3, Gatsby 4, all the upgrades in between. And so we've improved a lot of the good parts that we had in all those versions. And we have also added some better parts. So we're phrasing Gatsby 5 as the best version of Gatsby yet. And we truly believe that it is. This Gatsby 5 means that fast gets faster in every way that matters. We're introducing a slice API for supercharged component builds, and then also partial hydration to speed up your site performance. So what's changing? Like I said, our two major features, the slice API and partial hydration. We have two other major improvements coming to Gatsby 5, and that's that there's a slight change to the sort and aggregation to improve memory usage and speed, and then also graphical v2. So with the GraphQL sort and aggregation improvements, we actually saw improvements of memory utilization up to 99% while running queries. And then also our build speed for schemas, also we've seen in our benchmarks up to 98% faster. It also removes the limit on the field depth of sort and aggregation. We had a previous a limit where you could only go down a certain depth for sorting. We completely removed that limit so you can go as deep as you want to. And then also the nice thing is about this upgrade is it simply warns and continues on without update, even though there is a change to the schema. But Gatsby will automatically convert that for you behind the scenes. But if you want to remove the warning, we provide a code mod that you can run and it'll automatically update and commit those local changes to your file system. And then you can push that up to your repo yourself. Another really exciting thing is graphical. We went from V1 to V2. There's a ton of really nice improvements. So we continued over the code samples from V1. There's also the named query tabs that you can now have queries and group them based on what tab you want to use and things like that. And then there's also just general improvements. There's visual polish. Everyone's really excited about the dark mode. I'm very excited about the dark mode. And there's also some select all node field improvements, and then also just quality of life in general. Really exciting stuff. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Khaled, and he's going to demo some live Gatsby 5.
Okay, let me try to share my screen here, and hopefully you all seeing it. I'll try to get a hold of the chat also, if I can. Yeah, the chat is here. All right, so starting where all the upgrade starts, always a package JSON. So this is chocolate tree. This is my wife's food blog. This is my birthday cake. I have it every year. So if you want to get the recipe, it's here. And this is also always has been my test subject, and trying to make it always fast, be a good husband and upgrade the site. So here, as you can see, we have all the next branches for our plugins. These are the official ones. So when we release the beta, it's going to be later on the Gatsby 5.0.0. We also release any package we have inside of the repo with the next version. First thing is we should check. I just need to open not the live site, but you can see my server is running, and you can navigate here around. And if I go to the graphical, this is the new graphical, the new cool one. You can see you can set your variables, some headers here. You can also go and do the exploration. So this was also a feature. Let me maybe scale this up. This was already a feature of Graphical One, but also now it's in a nicer interface. And you can also do, for example, like you create your query and you want to export some of the code. We already generate some of the code to get you started. You don't need to write it yourself. And here are like the settings. Sorry for all this brightness. Let's go back to the dark mode or the system. And there's also a nicer thing, which is tabs. I can now create multiple tabs with different queries. This is amazing, and will help a lot of you write different queries, try them here without trying to, copy paste and keep the queries somewhere else. So that's the exciting part in there. Let's go to which one should we? And by the way, if you want to take a look at the code, I'm gonna paste it in the chat. You can go to the pull request, see how I went through the upgrade and so on, because we won't have time to go through all the code. Let's go to slices. This is also very exciting, but before going to slices, I want to show you how the website is structured, so to connect it to slices. The site is powered by Contentful, and right now the way I have it is I have reusable pieces of content, like you see here, a content model for the copy, for the image, a recipe, 2 images, and so on. This will allow the author to, in this case, my wife, to kind of compose a blog post however she wants without, without me being there every time trying to do that. So this is one block of content. This is a one block of content. The recipe itself is a block of content. And then this is like the 2 images. The problem before is whenever I change one of these blocks, it's a shared component. So it's used in all the pages. And we have like 100 or 100 and something blog posts. This will trigger the build for all the pages because Gatsby will not know which one it needs to build, because this component is dependent on every page. With slices, right now, what we can do is we tell Gatsby, hey, this piece of content is a slice. So when the data changes, only build this slice and stitch it with the HTML. So how we're going to do with that is you go to your Gatsby node in here. So inside of create pages, for example, you will have access to this create slice inside of actions. And the slice here, you give it an ID and then give it the component. So for example, like the article recipe, if we go to the source components and then content modules, you can see this is the component. And then you can see here for each content type, I have a slice. And then Gatsby will be smart enough, since I'm passing the data here, Gatsby will be smart enough to connect which slice to which page. And now, if we go, for example, to this is my site on the Gatsby Cloud, and then if I go to the settings and build, you can see here I enabled optimized slices and enable this unified hosting. So this will help also optimize the build even further. However, also slices can work on any other platform, but it will work best on Gatsby Cloud, and I'll show you that. So let's go to this piece of content, this introduction, as part of like this introduction here. And so here's it's saying, for example, it's my husband favorite. So I can say it's Khalid's favorite, and then hit publish. And then if you go to the cloud, you can see that it's building. And then let's check the logs. Actually, it's already done building. I was like waiting for something, but yeah, you can see here it's like done in 13 seconds. You can see I was like used to longer build times, but now we only built this one slice and it gets stitched in there. And if we go to the site and click on the first blog post, you can see this is the content already in. See, like 30 seconds. Sometime it will go between like 8 to 13 seconds. And if you go to and check like old builds, like a normal build for me would be like 2 minutes. Like, so now you can like calculate the percentage, how much you will reduce, and multiply it by a month, and you see how many hours you'll be taking more breaks and taking more coffee, or doing something else, or focusing on a better feature. And then chat, I think, got to increase that performance. Yeah, for the performance, this is not my actual performance, it's actually a bug. The real performance, if we go here and like starting the lighthouse, you will see it's gonna be different score. But that's, and I guess another topic. It's a bug on the cloud specifically for my site, because it's kind of it has internal stuff going on. You can see here it's different. Okay, moving on. So slices, that's slices. Hope you try the feature, and that's you can do a lot of use cases where you can optimize the build for your site. And then let's go to the head API, which is another thing. Before, people used React Helmet to inject meta and links into the head of the HTML page. So for example, a common use case is having SEO components. So if I go to my SRC here and components, you can see I have some components for SEO, and most of them are used in, for example, the article page, and it's used in here. So now you don't need React Helmet anymore. You can just export this the head function, and the head function will receive the same props that's passed to the page. So if you request, for example, some data from the GraphQL data layer, it will be available there, so you can build your component. It will also have the page context data in there. And here I'm filling whatever I need, and then I'm loading my components, filling them in here, and then they get rendered into the head. And then if you go to take a look at the actual component, it's basically, a React fragment with a bunch of meta, and using the data, they get filled up, like the description and all of that. And also, another thing is script component. In the website, if you look at the end of the blog post, the blog here, if we go to the live one, you can see here that it's using Discuss to load the third-party script for like comments and starting discussions and so on. And then that one is this component. So before, I had a custom component that checks a lot of things and then try to load, like I have all the logic to try to inject the script in there and everything. And you can see the diff in the pull request. Right now, what I'm returning in this component is using the script component. So you can see here a normal SRC, a normal SRC props, and then on load, I would set some configurations in here, and I have a div to inject the comments in there. Before, you would do a lot of things, or maybe even write a plugin and do all the hassle to be able to write to have scripts in here. But now it's a component, a simple one. You put the src there, and this is by default is on post hydrate. So when the hydration is done, the script component will be loaded. And I think I don't know, Josh, did I forget something to mention something here? But I think that's, I guess, a sneak peek right now.
Awesome. No, I think you got it.
Cool. And if there's questions, I guess, or something.
Yeah, we have a few questions here for you, Khaled. So I will pitch them to you. So we have from John Hansen, does Gatsby slices work within the present local public folder in case one is using a GitHub push build that is hosted on an alternative to Gatsby Cloud? And what would happen if one deletes the previous public folder?
Yeah, so I can hop in and try to answer that.
Yeah, Josh can.
Yeah, so I think that there still will be a decent speed boost there, just because of as long as the cache directory is not deleted, we should see some caching happening. When you deploy to or outside of Gatsby Cloud, the slices build speed improvement won't be nearly as much. I answered in chat in a previous message, but just to reiterate publicly, on other hosting platforms, we've seen about a 10 to 20% speed boost using slices, which is still great for data updates and content updates and code updates. But where we really see the improvement is on Gatsby Cloud. We've seen around 80 to 90% for specific benchmarks with large 10,000, 20,000 page sites.
There's also a question about why not make component slices automatically. So if you look at the RFC of slices, we have plans to have like these slices directories, and then we create the slices automatically. This is going to be in a 5.x version, definitely. And another one about the OG component, Twitter, etc. No, you don't need to have any separate component. You can just, get the code from that and put it in a JS, like the JSX fragment, and it's fine. I'm just separating things out, just for me to understand which part needs what, but you can bring in all the meta directly inside of the export for the head function there.
Yeah, and I see another question from Johan. It says, does slices come with code splitting? Slices is actually a purely generative feature. So once the build happens and all of your HTML files are stitched together, it'll be just like downloading a normal HTML page. So it's less so on the client side and more so on the build side. And then another question, is script component exclusive to Gatsby 5? Script component was released since Gatsby 4.0. I believe it was 4.15 or 4.18.
Yeah.
So it isn't a later version of Gatsby 4, but it will be included by default in Gatsby 5 as well.
Another question, is there a plan to introduce an alternative to Webpack? I think, Josh, you did some research around, maybe if you could say a few words.
Yeah, initially, so several months ago, we actually looked at replacing the bundler within Gatsby itself. We determined at the time that the level of effort and as specifically the plugin ecosystem, which Gatsby and Gatsby consumers are very heavily relied upon, it wasn't a good time at the moment. Not to say that we won't look into it again, but at this time we don't have any plans to move off of Webpack. But yeah, like I said, it's not a said and done decision, but just not now.
And I think in the QA section also here in Zoom, there's so one about from Roger. I don't know if we answered that, but can plugins and or themes provide default slices that can be replaced or shadowed? Example, theme that provides header, footer, sidebar slices, etc.
Yeah, so we don't see any issues with that. So you should be able to, in a theme, create a slice and then use that in the theme itself, which is really exciting. So you should be able to provide some defaults in your Gatsby node file by creating the slice and then using it as how that had showed.
Yeah.
I see David had asked, is there a V4 to V5 upgrade guide? Yes, there is. So you can actually go right now to gatsby.dev/5, like number 5. And that's kind of our landing page for Gatsby 5, and there's an upgrade guide linked there.
And I want to say a few words about the upgrade. I think it's going to be, 99.9% very smooth, unless you're using a very advanced thing. But we made sure and we learned a lot of lessons from previous versions. I think this is going to be, I guess, the smoothest upgrade yet. So hopefully, especially coming from 4, it should be very straightforward.
Josh, do you want to dive into the rest of some of the content that you had saved for us?
Yeah. So just I want to do a quick recap, and then we'll revisit some of the questions that are coming in.
Perfect.
So yeah, Gatsby 5 in review. As we talked about, the Gatsby Slice API, that's something that's really exciting, and we should see significant build speed boost with. We're really excited to see what the company our users come up with there. Partial hydration, which is something that we didn't dive too deep into today, but we do have documentation on it. If you go to the landing page, we'll have more information there. And then some of the general improvements, how that had showed the graphical V2. We have the sort and aggregation improvements to increase your querying speed and schema builds. And then also, like I said, everything that we built on since Gatsby 4 launched last year. So we have the Gatsby script component, the Gatsby Head API, incremental builds and deploys, image CDN, TypeScript and TypeGen, all the general improvements that we're really excited about. So the nice thing is you can actually try Gatsby 5 now. So if you install the next version of Gatsby using npm I Gatsby at next, you can actually install the beta now, and you can, go through some of the changes that you might want to see, put up a PR on your site, and get it ready for Gatsby 5. If you want to learn more about Gatsby 5, like I said, gatsby.dev/5 will take you to our landing page, which we have more information about each feature, the upgrade guide, everything that you might need there. And then what's coming up? Gatsby 5. Gatsby 5 is coming November 8th. So it's a week from today. You should be able to install it then using Gatsby, npm I Gatsby at latest. That will be on November 8th. We're super excited about Gatsby 5, super excited to see what everyone comes up with using the new features, seeing how drastically improved your build speeds will be using Gatsby 5. We're really looking forward to that. What's also next? You might have heard some inklings about Valhalla. That word being thrown in here and there. If you're active on our Twitter, that's been all over the place. Some hidden messages and memes and things like that. So Valhalla is something we're really excited about. In the next few days, there should be a webinar coming up. And so we're really excited to talk about that, launch that, and dive more deep into what it actually is. So with that, that's the Gatsby 5 webinar. Like I said, November 8th. Put that on your calendar. We're really excited about it. Gatsby.dev/5. And I just want to say thanks everyone for coming. Thanks to Neha for kind of hosting this and putting it on, and Khaled for pairing on this and showing us live demo of the code. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us on Twitter. All of our tags are below. And with that, we can dive into some Q&A.
Sweet, thanks both. Okay, let's jump right into the questions. We have a ton coming in our way. From Neil, has Gatsby version 5 completely abandoned Webpack? Can we keep some Webpack configured for some special JS libraries or plugins?
I can answer that. No, we still use Webpack. We haven't abandoned Webpack. You might have seen, some of the RFCs, we were exploring some of the options, and I think we don't know what the future holds, but for now we're using Webpack, and we try to optimize it, and we have some custom code to do that. And yeah, we'll continue to use it until, I guess, a further notice.
Awesome, thank you. We have a question here from Akanksha. Does version 5 also take care of the Gatsby bundle size load times as well?
So Gatsby 5, we didn't do much as far as the bundler configuration goes. So as far as the load times, I would say no, but that's something that we definitely want to look into more in the future for sure.
Josh, any V5 starters?
Yeah, so we do have some V5 starters. If you go to our landing page, we actually have a starter for partial hydration and a starter for slices where you can try out both features and kind of get some hands-on experience. All ready to go on the beta, all ready to go for everyone to use.
Great. From John, we have, is there a limit to how many slices are used in a project?
So with slices, there's technically no limit. I would say where you're going to see the most benefit are your highly shared, across your site components. Talking about common layouts, headers, footers, navigation bars. That's where you're really going to see your benefit. It may not be worth the effort to convert, one. If you have a component that's on one single page, we don't promise any speed boost there, just because slices how they're kind of chunked out from the rest of your site. Where you're really going to see your improvement is navigation bars and headers and things like that.
Yeah. This is an anonymous attendee, but we have a question. Is there any way to put multiple slices in one create slice function, or do you have to do a create slice per component?
Yeah, you'll have to do a create slice for each component. Nothing's stopping you from putting that in a loop, or you doing things more automatically like that, or like using sourcing from Contentful or any CMS that you want. But yeah, you have to call create slice for each slice that you want to make.
Great. From Harshavardhan, we have a question. Changing our site from V3 to V4 was a bit time taking, especially the Gatsby image plugin. Are there any plugin changes that has to change in code, not just version, to be carried out for V4 to V5?
So we don't see anything initially. We can't speak for all of the community plugins, but all of the code that we've tested, all of the sites that we've upgraded, things like that should see very minimal breaking changes as far as, the hands-on code changing, things like that.
And especially APIs that are used by plugins, especially the sourcing, we haven't introduced any kind of breaking change, so they need to do a big change. So even for plugin maintainers should be also a smooth upgrade. But in case there's something, reach out to us and we'll try to help, definitely.
100%. Patricia, so do I need to use static query instead of static query to use slices?
So static query is something that we're actually deprecating in V6, like the static query component itself. We recommend moving over to the use static query hook just in general across the board in Gatsby 5. Your site will continue to work, but it is deprecated for V5, and then V6 it will be removed. So that's our recommended way going forward, is using the React hook instead.
But for slices, however, you can use the normal query, like you export your query as you do in a page. So you don't even need to use query, use the normal workflow there, and we will also load the data for you.
Yep.
From Caleb, do slices used as headers and footer components stay mounted during page changes?
So during page changes, it will actually take advantage of all of the caching and all of the prefetching and things like that we do in Gatsby currently. So we don't see any change there. As kind of previously mentioned, is that a lot of the slice logic will actually be on the build side of things. So it's primarily aimed at improving the build experience, whereas partial hydration is focused on the user experience. So we kind of tackled both of those sides for Gatsby 5.
Perfect. Neil has a great question here. Is there a V3 to V5 upgrade guide, or will we need V4 to V5 first?
Yeah, so V3 to V5, we have an upgrade guide from V3 to V4. We recommend going through that separately first, and then going V4 to V5. Like I said, we view the V4 to V5 as a pretty quick and painless upgrade. Like Khaled said, I know in the past we've had some difficult upgrades, and we've really taken that into consideration moving forward. And we want to make this as simple as possible. And so that's something that we've put a lot of time and thought into how we're handling these changes. So hopefully the V4 to V5 is a lot less of a lift for your engineering team or yourself. So yeah, I would recommend doing V3 to V4 first, and then going V4 to V5.
And once you upgrade to V4, you're already 90% of the way there.
Yeah.
The rest should be easy.
Very true. Wow, we have some great questions coming in. We have another one here. Is there a Gatsby recommended authentication provider for requesting content after build time?
Like
Question.
Authentication for like building an app with authenticate. I would tell you I guess the tech answer. It depends, but I think yeah, there's definitely a lot of providers that you can use, and you can leverage some of the also Gatsby functions to do any like server side logics. But there is. I can't just like give you one way, to be honest. I guess it depends on the use case and the service and the feature that they want to use.
From Daryl here, we have, can you slice a hook, or does it have to be a component? Mainly because sometimes we've used a hook for static query.
Yeah, so in that sense, you'd probably want to wrap it in a component. You know, whatever component is using the hook, you'd want to turn that component into a slice. So in short, slices are components in themselves. You know, you render them into your DOM tree as a slice component from Gatsby. So you'd want to wrap it somehow like that. But yeah, we don't support directly using hooks as a slice.
From Zohair, we use WordPress for CMS. For V4 to V5 upgrade, what do we need to update on the CMS?
Nothing. The short answer is like, obviously we recommend, security updates always, but that's for your website to stay secure, but nothing required for Gatsby.
From Jim, can you talk a little bit more about the relationship between slices and components?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So the way that slices works is when you call the create slice action from your Gatsby node, we actually build out that component into a separate HTML file. So when we say component, that term is a little bit overloaded. I know in React in general, that term is a little overloaded. But when you create your slice, you can think of it as building a separate HTML file. And then when you use the slice, what we're calling placeholder, so that's the actual component that you're calling in your, let's say, your layout component, and you have a header in there, and you say, I'm going to import slice from Gatsby. Let's render this slice in this spot and pass it an alias of header. That's what's actually going to pull the HTML file that you rendered in your Gatsby node file and put it in place of that component. So when you pass that component path that Khaled had showed in the chocolate-free demo website, that's where it was actually building the HTML to slot in later. So that's kind of the relationship. Is you can think of a slice as kind of a wrapper around your component that pulls it out of the DOM tree and then puts it back in when it needs to kind of build or to build your site faster.
That's a great explanation. Rui, with slices getting the data from the page query, when a change on a slice is made, will we only fetch part of said query?
So the whole query will still be run. We won't run all the queries on your site, but we will rebuild that specific slice based off of the data that changed.
Okay, we're coming close on time, but I think we should take a few more questions. Do you think using styled components into partial hydration will ever be a thing?
It's the age-old question.
Yeah, I think like the whole like partial hydration and server components, like it's not just us who needs to support it, but also all the libraries like style components, emotion, or any other kind of library that needs that. So I think it will take some time, but hopefully I think all the library maintainers will do an upgrade, or you'll find a way to do it. But yeah, it's kind of tricky because everything, like even React is still experimental in terms of the server component, and yeah, that's the trickiest part.
Okay, last couple of questions from Mohit here. We're using Drupal as an API provider. Any changes required in there? Also, when are we getting a stable Gatsby module for Drupal?
Yeah, so like Khaled had said, for WordPress, no changes that we anticipate for Drupal itself. So that should be a pretty seamless upgrade on the CMS side. Can you repeat the second part of the question?
Where did it go? Yes. Also, when are we getting a stable Gatsby module for Drupal?
Gatsby module. I wonder if is it a plugin, perhaps? I think we don't have an official one for Drupal, but there are community plugins that should do what you need. So just look out in the community, and I'm sure that someone has a highly maintained plugin for Drupal. Maybe Khaled's looking it up right now.
Brian,
Yeah, I think maybe there's
cool. Why Khaled searches for that. We have a question here from Brian. How do you get to the Gatsby 5 starter?
yeah, I pasted also a link there on the landing page. There's the starters that like for slices and partial hydration. Also, if you go to GitHub, there's the umbrella issue there. There's the links for all the starters. So maybe also I can directly link them. So let me grab the links and I'll post them also.
Perfect. Amazing. Well, that's it, folks. We're getting to the tail end of things. Thank you so much for joining us today. A big thank you to Josh and Khaled for leading this, putting together all of this great content. Like both of them alluded to, we do have a major product launch coming out this Thursday. You may have heard the name Valhalla. Catch us on Twitter with the meme game. But if you would like to tune in live when we announce Valhalla, I am dropping the link right now to the webinar right over here. So make sure you register, claim your spot there. I will be joined with our senior product manager, Shane Thomas. And he will be walking through everything you need to know about this new product. It is not something you're going to want to miss or watch later on a recording. Please join us live and please bring your toughest questions. This is something that Gatsby has been long at work at, so we're really excited to bring it out to the public and showcase it to all of you this Thursday. So thank you again for joining us. A big thank you again to Khaled and Josh. If you have any questions, you know their Twitter handles, catch them on Twitter. And of course, if there's anything I can do, you can catch me on Twitter as well. But other than that, we will send out a recap email with the recorded version of this webinar for all of you to reference at your leisure. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.
See ya.
Ciao. See ya.